I'd say to myself, I know she knows, she has to know. So
What was your response?
I just said, hi, Mrs. Rosenblum, and I kept walking. What am I gonna do? I wanted to throw myself off the second deck, but I couldn't. And this continued to evolve, and then finally I got out of it in that the day after the game, Georgia thought she was a great singer. So Rosenblum would pay for her. I'd have to drive her to New York in this stretch Cadillac that was bigger than Baltimore, looking like I was the chauffeur. The only thing missing was the hat. Drive her to New York and then take her to this studio, and I'd have to pay the guy cash. And then she would sing and they would record. Of course, nobody, he was paying for somebody that he knew couldn't sing, but that's what made her happy. So, I mean, finally, after a while, it kind of faded away. In the end, he ended up divorcing his wife, Dolly, marrying her. The end of the story is, unfortunately, she found a way to push his son Steve, who was my close friend, out of the will. She ended up inheriting the team because suspiciously, and Frontline has done a story on suspiciously, Rosenblum died while swimming outside of his place in Golden Beach. Now, I've been to his place. I've been to Golden Beach. I know the surf. I know that he was a good swimmer. But they show a picture, I think, of some people swimming around him. I swear he was murdered. Nobody knows whether he was murdered, if he was, because Steve was beginning to move back to California, and she wanted to make sure the will was in her name now, and that basically she either had him murdered or the gamblers, who people think he was into, had him murdered. But I believe that he was. So that was the end of his life. She ended up as a person that people will never forget. She moved the team from base.
Just a second. Not a problem.
I'll get on top.
Okay, I'm sorry.
She ended up moving the team, if you remember,
Yeah.
from LA to St. Louis, and now they're back again. Her husband, Dominic Frontieri, ended up going to prison in a ticket scam with Super Bowl tickets. So there it is, mystery after mystery solved by yours truly.
As far as the death of Rosenblum, yeah, it could have been because of gambling debts that he had, because he was a serious gambler. Also, wasn't it his eventual wife who basically dealt with the Ursays to get out to LA, or was that Rosenblum?
No, that was Rosenblum, and the
Okay.
greatest tax
I see,
swap
for
in
tax
history.
purposes.
Yeah, to do it. He dumped Baltimore, which made him to go to LA because he wanted to be out there with all the phonies. He was in the movie business by that time. You know, he was a great friend of Henry Mancini's. I mean, he wanted to be out there with all the name droppers and have the Rams, and they were very, very successful. They never quite, they went to, I think, one Super Bowl, but he loved the glamour of it. So, I mean, that's basically what happened. But what was established in Baltimore was something, again, that you think about all of the bizarre things that happened too. For instance, my second year there, Bobby Kennedy had recommended, allegedly, a new ticket manager for us by the name of Mike Hoffman. And of course, Mike Hoffman came in, and I always remember his famous line before he went south, and that was, well, in those days, mostly it was cash. Some checks, cash. You know, the bank people would come to pick it up every day. The Army card people.
No credit cards.
Maybe a few,
Yeah.
but mostly checks and cash.
Right.
And I'd say, Mike, it's all done, and his famous line was, bag it. And I found out later what bag it meant. What finally happened a year later, a few days before our opening game, and the game where Art Donovan would be retired with a big ceremony at the center of Memorial Stadium, is I got a call, and Mike Hoffman hasn't showed up for 2 days. And people are calling about, you know, where are their season tickets? Where are their individual game tickets and everything else? The next thing we know is Hoffman is taken off with what they believe, the FBI, $100,000, There's 30,000 or more, something like that, buried under his bed. They finally found that. And the town is gone crazy because the Colts were the biggest thing there. I mean, if there, even if there was a loss, they acted like it was the funeral of Abraham Lincoln. I mean, you never knew. And so this unbelievable mess. I actually worked 3 days without any sleep, trying to find out when and how these things happen. He double sold tickets, but he also, we had a presidential box. He sold the presidential box for thousands of dollars. And all of this was going on, and people were rioting, and I was working at the window of the ticket sales, and people were outside, and they finally asked some of the players to come down as protection along with the police for fear that they would raid the place and kill us all. I mean, you think I'm kidding? I mean, this was it for them. So finally they sent Art Donovan down, and he kind of quieted everybody else down. And that was the beginning, again, of a different form of what entered the NFL, which was they computerized all tickets after that. They finally found Hoffman a year later, but the FBI couldn't find him. He walked right in unnoticed through Friendship Airport and turned himself in a year later. One of 9 children. Thank you, Robert Kennedy, if that was the one. But you couldn't believe it. And that day that Donovan retired, it was very emotional, but they had to put in extra seats. They didn't know whether there'd be rioting in the stands. I mean, you can't believe it. We're talking about 1962. So that was just one of the many things that happened there. Also, they had a show. You would absolutely laugh at it today. I mean, if it would be Romper Room, it would be, you know, something on PBS for kids. But every Monday night, the Colts were so big, not only in Baltimore, but in Washington. They have a show called Corralling the Colts, which would be the greatest sleep inducer. It would take the place today of a pill that would help you sleep. And on Corralling the Colts, every Monday night would be the head coach. It was either Weeb Eubank when he was there, then Don Shula. And they would come in and they'd have from WMAR, which I think was a CBS affiliate, with Jack Dawson, and they would show the game film from the day before, which was, and then talk to the coach like, you know, never second guessing the coach. They'd say, well, you know, Don, it was a tough loss yesterday, and I know you made the right call, even though he made the wrong call. I know you made the right call, and we in Baltimore are behind you. It was one of those things I'm saying, who the hell would watch this? Well, I'll tell you who watched it. More than, and there were only 3 networks then, not like we have today in cable. There was ABC, CBS, and NBC. Mm-hmm. And each one, they were big affiliates, especially WBAL. It was the highest rated show from 8 to 9 o'clock, right against the networks, of anything on television.